Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the DUNU Kima. This is their latest single DD, let's say in the budget realm, well, budget for DUNU, and it's a 10mm DLC driver in an all new shell, which I'll show to you in a second. And yeah, anyway, I think as well, I believe this is the first time they're using also waifus. I don't know why, but I guess if it helps with marketing and with sales, why not? I don't share that same thought, but hey, whatever. They obviously do what they want to do. Box, just gonna take you through it quickly. Very typical in terms of DUNU's offerings. It brings a ton of accessories. One second. So tips, all sorts of tips and sizes and variations. It brings that new tip that they have now, which is that kind of tube style tip, which I'll show to you in a second. Cleaning cloth, I mean the whole 9 yards are here. Cable as well, which is actually pretty decent cable, which again is expected and normal from DUNU. Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, there's nothing much to show here except for the fact that they have got very good accessories. That's it. Anyway, on to what we are more interested in knowing, which is, of course, here's the case, this time in an orange. The famous tube style tips are these ones, okay, which I did some of the listening to, but I then afterwards substituted for another one, which I'll show you in a second and give you the reasons for that. But anyway, that's the case. As for the IEMs themselves, new shell design, more traditional, not as adventurous as was the Titan S. Nice shell design, it's got a decent weight to it. What can I say? Normal diameter nozzle. It's not a wide diameter nozzle by any means. Let's put it that way. Vent hole over there, 2-pin connector. This is the cable. This is the stock cable, as you guys might have already been able to pick up on. So it's a nice cable actually, and that's why I didn't change it. Fits beautifully. However, having said that, I did discover during my listening process that if you're able to insert it really deep, which obviously is going to be difficult because the nozzle is not very long and it has this protrusion in the actual shell, which also will hit the entrance of your ear hole pretty early and limit you to how much you can insert it. But if you are able to insert it quite deep, you will be satisfied with the results. And that's one of the recs that I do. Actually, it's one of the recs that I'm going to start doing with a lot of the IEMs, not only past reviews but future reviews, which is really do your best to get those earphones inside your ear, because there's a reason why Etymotic does it, and my recent findings over the last couple of weeks have proven them right in their philosophy, in their theory, and more I'm actually getting surprised by how different the sound can be by having a deep insertion, and the Kimas were no exception to that. The Kimas changed completely their nature. I used initially that new tip that they have, and the results were fine, but the results kind of left me a little bit underwhelmed, and like, it was a little bit like excuse me, sorry, it was a little bit like a food that was lacking a little bit of salt to really bring out the best. And by changing the tips to these BQEYZ, wide bore, medium sized or a large size, it doesn't really make a difference. I actually had to use, I used the medium size initially. That allowed me to introduce them slightly deeper, but I had to hold them in place, especially on my left side, because the hole was a little bit bigger. My ear hole is a little bit bigger, so I actually have to hold it inside there so that it wouldn't fall off. Using the large size, that no longer is a necessity, and they stay in there pretty well. And the difference in sound is nothing, is minimal. I measured with both tips, and I can tell you it's minimal. And hearing, I couldn't hear any difference as well. So, DUNU Titan S shell fit tip selection is very important. I think that's about it. I think I've covered what needs to be covered. All right, let's go on to what we all want to know, which is this an improvement over the Titan S? Isn't an improvement over the Titan S? How does it compare to its to some of the competitors? I haven't got all of them here. How does it compare to them? How doesn't it compare? Okay, what do I have here? Well, I have the Aria, the original. I have the Aria Snow Edition, because this is the one that graphs the most close to the Kima. I've got obviously the Titan S, as to be expected. T2 DLC. I didn't bring out the T3. The T2, in my opinion, is the price difference justifies it, in my opinion, being the better choice out of that or the T3. The T3 will be a better choice if the fit of the T2 is an issue. That's kind of how I would position things. Sound-wise, they're both excellent and very similar to each other. So there are a few differences. Yes, of course there are. But I think the T2 DLC is the better option, and that's why I chose it. HD Sound Heart Mirror Pro, and the Olina, which is the reference at $100. I mean, the Kima costs about $100. At HIFIGO, which is where I got this one, it's a little bit cheaper than that. I got at HIFIGO, if I'm mistaken, it's at $93. So yeah, that's basically it. And there's another IEM, which is this one over here, which I have it here for a reason, which is the MT3, the TRN MT3. And you guys might say, oh my god, but why have you got the MT3 here? What is it doing here? Well, I've got the MT3. I could have had the Cell Notes 7Hz 0, and I would have liked to have had the Tangzhou 1 Ear. I believe that's how you say it. But I don't have it, still hasn't arrived. The 7Hz 0, in my opinion, stays behind the MT3. The MT3 is a more complete IM for me, in my opinion. The only issue with the MT3, well, not an issue, it's an issue with any IM, but the issue with the MT3 is choosing the right tip and it making sure that it fits properly. BQEYZ again came to the rescue, and that's the best tip for this. And the results are incredible. Honestly, they are incredible. What can I say in more detail about then the Kima? Well, the Kima is you could say it's a Harman neutral-ish tuned IM. It's got a slight mid-bass boost with with what can be perceived sometimes as slightly recessed mids. But overall, it's got a nice warm balance to the sound. The bass is natural. It's not over, it's not emphasized in any way. It's a very natural bass. It's got just that extra amount over the Titan S to make it more complete, because that was my only kind of detail or point of mentioning with regards to the Titan S. The Titan S was, in my opinion, just a little bit too bass light. The sub bass, there are occasions where you can feel a little bit the rumble, but it's not where it shines. It's not the Kima's let's say playground. Mids, on the other hand, is where the Kima shines, and the mids are clean. They've got this transparent, nice cleanliness to them, and everything is. Above all, always very safe. I think that's the best word. Everything is very safe. It's all about being clean, having nice bite, being neutral, both on instruments and on vocals. Not wanting to overemphasize any instrument, not wanting to over add any information to any instrument, and the only instruments that honestly I found were maybe sometimes, and depending on the song, a little bit edgy, were guitars. But anything that was percussion for the most part was perfect. Even brass instruments, in my opinion, were perfect as well. Only guitars sometimes, very few times, they were a little bit too edgy. Vocals, again, very neutral, very natural, both females and males. It's all about being safe in its tuning, and it's very clean, very it's clean. That's the best word I can find, honestly. It's a clean mid representation. All of this, plus then coupled to a treble, which is equally done right. It's not too much, it's not too little. It's a treble which is just the right amount. It's crisp when it has to be crisp. All of this kind of ultimately leads to what you could say is a safe tuning. There's nothing, a way of kind of summarizing the Kima is that it's a jack of all trades. It's clean, it's polished in the mids, it's got clean right quantity highs, it's got a nice clean bass again. It's all about being clean, detailed and natural as possible, and not overemphasizing anything, not wanting to showcase any particular part of the spectrum. This then leads to this very safe tuning, but this very safe tuning can also be sometimes just a little bit boring, a little bit lacking a little bit of engagement. So excuse me guys, I really apologize. So if I start comparing now, and if I compare straight with the Titan S, overall, well, let me start by saying the following. There are obviously IEMs which are better than others, and it's noticeable and so on and so forth. All of the IEMs that I have in front of you here, including the TRN, all of them are so very closely matched, and the differences are so particular to certain genres of music, and so that you cannot really say that any one of them is better or worse or whatever. There are preferences of mine, which I will let you know which are my preferences. There are preferences which I believe will be the preferences of a larger public, okay? But there isn't really anything here where you say, okay, now this one is garbage, let's put it that way. This one is a winner, this one is again garbage, that one's a winner. No, there's nothing. They are all very, very equally balanced. They all do everything that they're supposed to do well, and there's nothing in any of these IEMs that you can really say, oh my god, this is horrible. No, you can't really say it that way. Sorry about that. So having said that, and having set that stage so that we don't, I'm not misinterpreted or anything of the sort, let me start comparing. As I was saying, compared to the Titan S, at the very limit, the Titan S will be a little bit more detailed. We'll have just that little extra amount of detail that just edges it out over the Kima, but it lacks the bass of the Kima, so they kind of cancel each other out. So I would say if you are a person that really wants or focuses on mids and wants mids and vocals and everything, then you can't really go wrong with either one of them. It just depends on how much bass you like. Okay, it's not that the difference in bass is humongous, no it isn't, but there is a difference in bass. Graphically, it's not really representative. We're talking maybe two at very most 3 dBs, but when you listen to it, yes, there are genres and there are songs where you will notice that difference. For example, Deeper from Pete Velasco, you notice it quite well. Let Go from Gali Matias as well, you notice it quite well. Let me see another one here. Don't Leave Me Lonely by Mark Ronson and Yeba, you notice it again. So there are songs where that difference is noticeable, but you can't really say, oh, this one is being completely overshadowed by the Kima. Yes, the Kima does have a more traditional fit. It's a newer design. So ultimately, yes, I guess it's a better product. And that still doesn't mean that if you find a Titan S for a good price that you shouldn't buy the Titan S. Or if you have a Titan S, is it a real upgrade for the Kima? I don't think so. Okay, that's Titan S out of the way. Now let's get these two out of the way straight away. So let's get the tin and the HD sound. Excuse me, guys. The tin hi-fi and the HD sound, the one thing that you will notice straight away with compared to the Kima is that the bass has got this added warmth to it that just makes them, either one of them, more engaging. I also found that, although very detailed here, the Kima, I found that there's just a little bit extra amount of sparkle on the tin to make it just a little bit more engaging for me. Again, let me reiterate this. I'm not saying that it's better or worse or no. What I am going to say is that this costs $60. This costs $100. Round numbers. The difference in price, that when there is a winner. Period. The tin is a winner. Okay? There's nothing that the Kima does for the extra amount of money that compensates the $40 difference. The fit obviously will be an issue, but that's it. Basically, what I've just said applies to the HD sound, although I will say that the HD sound is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of its mids when compared to the Kima. There are instances where I prefer the HD sound, there are instances where I prefer the Kima. The fit of the HD sound is flawless, perfect in my opinion. They both cost the same thing roughly. That's got a modular cable system and a normal cable system. So I'm guessing, look, you can't really go wrong with either one of them. Honestly, you cannot go wrong with either one of them. Out of the three, what is my personal choice? The tin hi-fi. Okay, that's it. So that's Titan S out of the way, Tin T2 and HD sound. Let's now go to the Arias. With the original Aria, straight away you notice that it's way more bass heavy than this. Do I like it more because of that? Yes, I like it more. It's got the kind of bass that I personally prefer. So, the rest, the mids, I find them equally detailed. Everything is there. I never found the Aria to have that aggressiveness past 10K that some people mentioned. So, of the two, personally, I would go for the Aria. Again, the Aria has another thing going good for it, which is the fact that it costs $60 odd. So that's a very strong point that it's got on its favor, as compared to the Snow Edition. And these two are the ones that have the most similar sound. So it's a little bit more laid back in the treble. The nice thing that I like about the Snow Edition over the Kima is that, although graphically the bass seems the same, it's just got this extra warmth about it that, I don't know, it's very nice. Again, let me once more say this. I'm not saying that the Snow Edition is superior or bit or worse, or no. I'm just saying that personally, for what I hear, and when I listen to a song like, for example, let's say Come Over from Rashan Peterson, or Deja Vu from Scarlet Pleasure, or Just a Little Loving from Shelby Line, I just like, although this does it very nicely, the correctness of this is a little bit too much. And it, sometimes it's nice to just have that little extra colorness, let's put it that way. I don't know if I'm saying the right word or correct way, but I'm sure you guys will understand. So ultimately, I will choose the Aria personally over this. Okay, so that's the Arias out of the way. On to the Olina. And the Olina, okay, and let me also clarify one detail here. If I was comparing the Kima to the stock Olina, okay, this has got the double damper. If I was comparing the two, I would say Kima. Kima definitely, because it doesn't have that edginess that the stock Olina has. Once you put the dual damper on it, which is what I have here, Olina all the way. This is the one case that I will say definitely this is a superior IEM. Superior IEM. Better tonality, better technicalities, because that's one aspect that I think that the technicalities of the Kima are average. And that's where, for example, when I was talking about the Titan S earlier, the Titan S in terms of its technicalities is superior to this. Okay, the technicalities of both the Aria and the Snow Edition are, again, in my opinion, superior to the technicalities of the Kima, especially the stock Aria. Its soundstage and imaging is superior to this, definitely is. Okay, it's noticeable. The HD sound, in terms of its technicalities, it's got better detail retrieval than this. Excuse me. The one technicality that this does very well, and I mentioned it already a few times, is it's very tonally correct. It's very neutral. It's very natural. In that aspect, it's very good. Going back now here to the Olina. The Olina is just better in everything. Technically, the soundstage of the Olina is tremendous. The simple fact, and we all know this, but the simple fact that this is able to surpass in terms of technicalities certain aspects of the sound, or certain of those technicalities, an IM like the Oxygen and the Kato and the HANA 2021 and a bunch of other single DD IMs costing twice and 3 times the amount of money the Olina, that says how good it is. So we don't need to kind of beat the dead horse. This is definitely the one IM that is superior. Okay. Now it's been substituted by the SE. I'm still waiting for it to arrive, and once it arrives, if there's a need for it, I'll obviously compare. And then finally, the dark horse here, which is the MT3. And as I said, I apologize for not having the Tangzhou here present, because I'm sure the Tangzhou will surprise me as well. But the MT3, if I was to listen blindly to both of them, okay, and I didn't know what was what, I would gravitate more towards this. Okay, why? Because the colorness, like I mentioned earlier, that this has, if you are able to, as I say, insert the IM and fit it properly into here, the colorness that this has is so good that you listen to it and you will not, I think a lot of the people out there still haven't had, or still haven't given the deserved chance to the MT3 to show what it's capable of. It is an IM which is capable of a performance far superior its price. And I think it definitely falls within the same category as, from what I've been hearing from some reviews of, or some preliminary reviews of the 1 year, that it's an IM that shoots for IMs, or goes well up against IMs of $50, $60, $70. And in that aspect, when I compared it here to the Kima, like I said, there were many times that I preferred it over the Kima. I could differentiate the two because it's noticeable, the energy of the upper mids presence area. It's noticeable that the Kima is a little bit more relaxed. It's more tame, more neutral, more natural. So it's noticeable there. But I actually preferred it over here. It gave certain songs that I like listening to that little extra zing that I like, stuff like, for example, let me give you an example so that you know, and I'll post these songs afterwards. Twilight from Brian Simpson. It's got that little extra that makes it really shine. On the Morning from Robin Ford, same situation. It's got a little extra that makes it shine. So even a song like The Chemistry of Love, okay, by Michael Franks, which is a song which is a little bit unfair because the recording of it is got some sibilance, all right? And the only IEM out of all of these, actually, that was able to, let's say, handle that sibilance well, was the Aria, the Snow Edition. All of the others, they all showed that sibilance. So you can now say they were all perhaps more correct sounding because they showed it, and this one kind of subdued it. But it's like I say, this here just has that little extra energy that it at times and with specific songs is just a little bit more engaging. And the fact that it costs below $20, I mean, now during the 11.11 I saw this as low as $12. The fact that this costs what it costs is, it's worth its merit. It's a nice little IM overall. Okay, I'm not going to say it's better again than the Kima, because it isn't better than the Kima, but the fact that it can keep up with the Kima in a lot of things is a true testament to the following that I'm about to say, which is, obviously a brand wants to make its money. Obviously, I'm not saying otherwise, but if a brand can do something like this, like TRM, the cost of what is involved here, because this has also got a metal shell, okay, it's got a half decent dynamic driver, okay, might not be a fancy DLC driver like that, but it's got a half decent dynamic driver. And I can tell you right now that the price difference between this driver and that driver there, is very small, very, very small, okay. And I know this very well. So where is the difference here in terms of the price? Well, the difference is that this doesn't bring a nice packaging, this doesn't bring a nice cable with it, this doesn't bring as many tips, and this is not a brand which is as pompous as DUNU. That's it. Because if this was made by DUNU, this would probably cost $60 or $70 quite easily, okay. And let's leave it at that, okay. Let's leave it at that. What I'm trying to say is, and again, you've seen that example with the soft tiers, with the 7 hertz cell notes 0, and with the Tangzhou 1 year as well, is that things are not as expensive as sometimes we think they are, okay. They are a hell of a lot cheaper, and I think we should stop thinking that more expensive means better. No, more expensive does not mean better, okay. Trust me, I've had my fair amount of experiences, and more expensive doesn't mean better. Anyway, on to the conclusion, because I'm rambling here now already. How do I rate, or what do I say about the Kima? Do I wreck it? Yes, I wreck it. Of course I do. If you have any of these IEMs here, is it a worthwhile upgrade? Is it a side grade? I would say that this is more of, well, let's put it this way. If you have an Olina, then it doesn't make sense going for this. So let's take this one out of the equation here. The Titan S is a question of you finding it or not finding it, if it's still available, if it's not available. So let's also take that one out of the equation. So let's leave here the ones that are probably the ones which are going to be easier to find. The T2, the Arias, the HC Sound, and the MT3. With this group here, this is a side grade. It's a different flavor of good. Let's put it that way. It's whatever rocks your boat. Do you like the shell? Do you like the cable? Do you like the name? You can't go wrong. And if you have any of those, this is not an upgrade. That's it. With regards to the TRN, I'm gonna say it's an upgrade in the sense that this is a real, this is budget, and when you put the Kima on, or when you have a Kima, you've upgraded. You've bought something which is better quality. Having said that, the fact that this costs 5 times what the TRN costs doesn't mean that it plays 5 times better. Doesn't mean it plays better. Yes, it's more natural. Yes, it's more correct. Yes, it's got better tonality than that. Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's an outright better choice, or no, doesn't mean that. Anyway, like I always tell you guys, tips is very important, very, very important, more so than going and spending a fortune in cables. All right, and yeah, that's it. I'll show you the graphs now next, and any other questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask. All right, you take care. Bye bye. Hi guys, and welcome to the graph section of my review. So let's start off here with this is the graph of the Kima, and this is using that new tip that they've now developed. Actually, let me just zoom this in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's the Kima's graph using that new tip that they've now developed. And for the sake of you guys understanding a thing or two as well, Let me just show you here what it is like compared to some of the other tips that come with it. So this is number 11 here. This, actually, let me just change the color so you guys can see it better. All right, I'm gonna make it a nice red. There we go. Okay, so number 11. This is number 11. This is the graph or the response with the white and green tip that comes along with the DUNU as well. And this is the black and blue tip. Okay, so let me just change this color. Let's put it a green so you guys can see better. Okay, so basically everything stays the same, just a little bit of a difference here on how early or how late these peaks begin. But it's basically stays the same. I mean, until 5k everything is the same. It's just then a little bit difference here in terms of how it rises before that 8k peak or so on. Initially, like I said, I left that barrel shaped tip, which is this one here, on, and I can say that I liked it. It wasn't allowing me to fit it deeply like I wanted. So then I decided, well, let me try a few other tips, and I took out the BQEYZ tip because I've also used it in the TRN. So I took it out and let's see, and what was the difference, and that was a graph of the BQEYZ. And the one thing that I straight away liked was that it cleaned up the slope here nicely. So we have a drop here of about 3 dBs at close to this area between 4 and 5. It just cleans it up nicely, and instead of having 2 peaks past 10k, you've only got 1 peak. And the one thing that I did notice by using the BQEYZ tip was that the technicalities, which I mentioned in the review, which are not amazing, they kind of improved, and you've got a better sense of 3D, definitely. And then I said to myself, well, hold on, let's see if I can still improve upon this. And then I decided to use the BGVP whiteboard tip, which is this one here. So let me just take away the other one. There we go. Sorry. There we go. So that's the BGVP. I'll actually take out. And again, as you can see, the BGVP tip plateaus a nice smooth drop off, and this whole area here really helps with how the 3D presentation of the Kima is. It makes it better. It makes it sufficiently better to justify getting those tips. Let's put it that way. So all of this to say what, that although the tips that the Kima bring are plentiful and good, in my opinion, in my experience, and I'm showing it to you, and this is one thing that I said I was going to start doing more, and it was experimenting with different tips to extract the best, because I didn't want to fall into the mistake that I fell with the MT3. BGVP, okay, 08 whiteboard tip, white in a medium or large size, is capable of yielding this result here, which is very nice on the Kima, very nice. All right, anyway, I'm going to leave that because that's what then I used for the majority of my listening, and I'm going to start throwing at you some of the other graphs. Well, this is the graph of the Titan. Here we go. Let me just change it to blue. Okay, and as I mentioned, there's a little bit of difference there in the base, but you know what, it's the graph doesn't show what in reality you hear. What in reality you hear is more fullness in the base of the Kima, and that's basically the biggest difference there. Also, the fact that it peaks at 3.5k, and because that's a couple of related peak there. The fact that it peaks there and not at 2.5, this conveys in terms of the upper mids a more detailed presentation. Okay, it's just more detailed. There's however natural the Kima is, the Titan S is capable of doing that naturalness, but with just that little extra amount of spark. Obviously, this will be dependent on your music and what you hear in your ears. Are you able to introduce it deep enough, not deep enough? So there's a whole bunch of factors here which are so, that we must always keep them in mind and not forget them, all right? So that's the Titan S. Moondrop Snow Edition. Okay, let's put that one up there. There we go. And I'm actually going to show you. Sorry, let me take the Titan out. Yeah, I'm just going to show you initially. Okay, this is the Kima with the whiteboard with that tube tip against the Snow Edition. And as you can see, they are almost identical. I mean, it's actually quite weird how identical they are. The difference here is that the Snow Edition peaks closer to 3K as opposed to, let's say, just over 2 for the Kima, but the rest, everything is very similar. Somehow the bass here just sounds fuller, just sounds a little bit more, just that little extra amount of, let's say, warmth in the bass of the Snow Edition as opposed to the Kima. And the rest, yeah, everything is again very clean, very detailed in the Snow Edition, but somehow there's a little extra amount of cleanliness on the Kima side. So the Kima loses in terms of its bass warmth, but gains in terms of cleanliness up top. Of the two, the more satisfying listen for me is the Snow Edition. Okay. So let me take this one out, take that out, put again the version that I was listening, or the setup, the tip that I was listening. We'll put again the Snow Edition so you guys can compare it. And in this configuration, okay, with the BQEYZ, with the KB ear tip, what the Kima was able to do was offer a better performance in terms of its technical abilities that almost equaled the technical capabilities in terms of soundstage, let's say, of the Snow Edition. And it's actually quite interesting because you look at the graph and that's not what you would think, but when you listen to it, there's a difference there. And I think that difference, this is my opinion, this is me just saying, I think that opinion is down to the nozzle diameter and nozzle length. Okay, there's got to be something there that justifies that. Okay, as compared to the original Aria, that's this one. The original Aria, straight away you can see way fuller in the bass. I mean, there's a difference here in the bass of almost 4 dBs there. Way fuller. The mids are, on both cases, very well done. But then, and again, by looking at this, you would think that they would be very similar in terms of their 3D presentation and so on and so forth. No, the 3D presentation and the technicalities of the Aria is superior. Okay, that's that. This is the T2 DLC. Again, same situation. Significant more amount of bass. Just a little bit of extra energy in this upper mids and presence area, which just make the DLC just that little extra sparklier, and of course contributes for its better technical its better detailed retrieval capabilities as well. And in terms of the soundstage, very nice. It's the T2 DLC is again an IEM that I think a lot of people are not getting the max out of it because they're not able to get it to fit properly in your ears. And now obviously that's a problem, but I think that's the biggest flaw of the DLC, or the T2 DLC. And finally, compared with the HD sound, there we go. Compared to the HD sound, again, the same situation, more bass, like I mentioned. I mean, the performance of the HD sound and of the T2 DLC, and I'll just put them both. You can see they are very, very similar. They are neck on neck, honestly, neck on neck. The T2 DLC edges out the HD sound slightly, and again, mind you, let me just say this. this performance that I'm getting out of the HD sound is also after, you know, extensively trying out a whole bunch of tips and finding this particular tip. It's also a KB here, but a red it's a 08 if I'm not mistaken. The red insert, and it's got some, and white ball, and some really nice performance. And then finally, the last one is the TRN. There we go. And although you see this, oh my god, the TRN is going to have monster bass compared to, no, this is not what you hear. Forget it. This is not what you hear. Is the reason for this the fact that it's got all of this area here, all this energy here in the presence area? Could be, but no. The TRN MT3 does not sound this bass heavy. It sounds like it's got about the same bass as the Kima. Let's be honest. Let's say somewhere between the Kima and the DLC, the T2 DLC, somewhere between there. But where you do notice that the MT3 really does shine, and this is using the BQEYZ medium-sized tip, is in terms of its details up top and its detail retrieval and that sense of air, of space. It's really impressive. That's where the MT3, sorry, that's when the MT3 really kind of gets you, you know, and if you are able to get the tip, the BQEYZ tip, to fit you nice and deep in your ear, trust me, you are going to be impressed with the MT3. You will ask yourself, how is it capable? How is it possible that for $20 they can do something like this? Anyway, guys, this is a long ass review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, any questions, feel free to ask. You know how I am. I get carried away. I like showing different comparisons. Yeah, that's it. Take care. Bye bye. See you soon.